If you have already heard about Samuel Beckett's 1953 play Waiting for Godot, you've probably heard those comments. If you have read it, you might have felt that, indeed, nothing happens on Act 1 and then nothing happens on Act 2. Or, as some people would say,
in the beginning, it felt like nothing happened, and when I got to the ending, it felt like I was in the beginning.
Memes apart, this is the reason why it's common to hear people say they didn't like this play. If you're one of these people, I, Laila Cavalcante, and my friend Julia Maia are here to make you reconsider. Because Waiting for Godot is one of the most famous plays of the 20th century, and righteously so. To show you how brilliant this drama is, we are going to focus on two of its most important themes, cruelty and absurdist humor.
Before analyzing those themes, let's just briefly talk about the play itself. It is set on an empty country road with nothing but a tree and a low mound, where two men, Vladimir and Estragon, pass their time waiting for someone named Godot, who never appears. During this waiting, nothing happens except for some conversation between the two main characters and the arrival of two other men, Pozo and his slave, Lucky. Funny name for a slave, right? Apart from them, there is also the appearance of a boy sent by Mr. Godot. Everything that happens during Act 1 seems to be mirrored somehow during Act 2, which is, as we will see, one of the characteristics of the humor in this play.
To explain the absurdism in Waiting for Godot, we have to contextualize. The theatre of the absurd is the name given for a genre of plays of absurdist fiction, primarily written by European playwrights in the 1950s. In this context, Europe was living the post-World War II scenario, which gave space to works of art that dealt with ideas of existentialism and nihilism, that is, the feeling that nothing has meaning or purpose. When you just come back from experiencing the horrors of a war, you might keep thinking that humans kind of lack meaning and logic. As we have already mentioned, Waiting for Godot was written by Samuel Beckett in 1953, therefore, during this context of post-World War II. Beckett, an Irishman who lived in Nazi-occupied France, saw the absurds of war, and the cruelty and absurdist humor that we can spot in Waiting for Godot may be considered an expression of this experience. The play was first written in French and then translated by Beckett himself to English.
Well, the absurdist humor in Waiting for Godot is based on slapstick comedy, vaudeville antics, and of course, dark humor. Despite having only 2 acts, it is such a broad play, meaning that most people would find it at least a little bit funny, since there is humor for everyone. Slapstick comedy is a type of humor involving exaggerated physical activity that exceeds the boundaries of normal physical comedy and common sense. Many cartoons, such as Tom and Jerry, and artists such as Charlie Chaplin and Brazilian group Os Trapalhões are good examples of this style. Slapstick usually involves inept use of props, such as a pie thrown in the face, or a pair of boots that do not fit, or even the simple but bizarre swapping of bowler hats, as we can see in this scene from Waiting for Godot's Act 2.
How does it fit me?
How would I know?
No, I mean, how do I look in it?
Hideous.
Yes, but not more so than usual.
Neither more nor less.
Then I can keep it. Mine irked me. How shall I say? It itched me.
I'm going.
Another genre we can see in Waiting for Godot is vaudeville theater, which is a lighter, often comical theatrical piece frequently combining a variety of acts, such as pantomime, dialogue, a magician's number, dancing, or singing. In Waiting for Godot, there are moments in which the characters start dancing, singing, and even mimicking other characters. The first scene on Act 2 is opened with Vladimir inspecting the place and then, suddenly, singing in a loud, weird way. The lyrics to the song are very suggestive. They talk about a dog that stole a crust of bread and is horribly killed by the cook. Also, the structure of the song is actually circular, just like the structure of Beckett's play.
Cook up with the ladle and beat him till he was dead. Then all the dogs came running and dug the dog a tomb. Then all the dogs came running and dug the dog a tomb and wrote upon the tombstone for the eyes of dogs to come. A dog came in the kitchen and stole a crust of bread. Then cook up with the ladle and beat him till he was dead. Then all the dogs came running and dug the dog a tomb.
This scene, despite seemingly simple, brings up 2 points for discussion. First, just like the song, the play is also circular. It starts with Didi and Gogo waiting for Godot and it finishes in the same circumstances. One of the characteristics of the absurdist humor here is repetition, which can be seen in both acts. The situation didn't change much from one act to the other, but there were significant changes that made this play unique. On both acts, Pozo and Lucky appear, but they aren't the same. One had gone blind and the other dumb. Also, the boy comes in the end of both acts to deliver the same message, which Vladimir already knew what it was, since he probably had lived that scene over and over. A second point to highlight is that a song about a dog that is beaten to death for trying to grab someone's leftovers is ironic to say the least. Remember, we are talking about a post-war theater, and it is a subtle sign of the dark humor that can be seen many times throughout the play. According to Wikipedia, dark humor is a style of comedy that makes light of subject matters that are generally considered taboo, particularly subjects that are normally considered serious or painful to discuss. One of the most remarkable examples of this type of humor in Waiting for Godot is how Gogo is constantly bringing up the question, why don't we hang ourselves? The first time this is mentioned is in the beginning of the play when Gogo and Didi are so bored with the waiting that they consider hanging themselves on the tree, as if it were a normal suggestion.
What do we do now?
Wait.
Yes, but while waiting.
How about hanging ourselves?
It might give us an erection.
An erection?
With all that follows. Where it falls, mandrakes grow. That's why they shriek when you pull them up. Did you not know that?
Let's hang ourselves immediately.
From a bough? I wouldn't trust it.
We can always try.
Go ahead.
Now, after you.
No, you first.
Why me?
You're lighter than I am.
Just so.
I don't understand.
Use your intelligence, can't you?
I remain in the dark.
This is how it is. The bow. The bow! Use your head, can't you?
You're my only hope.
Go light. Bow, not break. Go dead. Didi heavy. Bow break. Didi alone. Whereas,
I haven't thought of that.
if it hangs you, it'll hang anything.
But am I heavier than you?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. There's an even chance. Or nearly.
Well, what do we do?
Let's do anything.
As we can already deduce from the type of humor in Waiting for Godot, behind every comic scene lies another aspect of life: cruelty. In a nutshell, cruelty is the behavior or the situation which causes physical or mental harm to another being. George Eliot stated that cruelty, like every other vice, requires no motive outside itself. It only requires opportunity. In Beckett's play, these opportunities show themselves in many different ways. For example, when the two main characters discuss the meaninglessness of life. Why are they waiting? They do not know exactly, which is another point for discussion: the unbearable uncertainty that surrounds them. The hugest uncertainty, of course, is whether Godot is ever coming. The endless waiting is one of the cruelest aspects one may imagine, and it happens more often than you think. This atmosphere of uncertainty prowls the play in a way that in many moments it feels like the characters seem to be lost in a bad dream. Everything is questionable. Did they really bump into Poto and Lucky the day before? Did Poto really go blind from one day to another? How long have they been waiting for this Godot guy anyways? As Vladimir would say, nothing is certain.
I sometimes wonder if we wouldn't be better off alone. Each one to himself. We weren't made for the same road.
It's not certain.
No. Nothing is certain.
We can...
Besides the mental cruelty of the endless and uncertain waiting, in this tragic comedy, there are also moments of physical torture, submission, and dehumanization. These can be seen in the way that Poto treats his slave Lucky, or when Estragon humiliates himself to the point of asking Poto whether he could eat the chicken bones from Poto's leftovers. Dehumanization at its core.
Please, sir.
What is it, my good man?
You finish with the... You won't be needing the bones, sir.
You couldn't have waited.
No, he does well to ask. Do I need the bones? No. Personally, I do not need them anymore, But in theory, the bones go to the carrier. He is therefore the one to ask. Go on, don't be afraid, ask him, he'll tell you.
Mister. Excuse me, mister.
You're being spoken to, pig. Reply. Try him again.
Excuse me, mister. The bones. You won't be needing the bones.
Mister. Reply, pig. Do you want them or don't you? They're yours. I don't like it. I've never known him to refuse a bone before. Nice business it'd be if he fell sick on me.
It's a scandal!
Are you alluding to anything in particular?
To treat a man like that, I think that... No, a human being. No, it's a scandal.
A disgrace.
You are severe.
Speaking of Poto and Lucky, one of the most remarkable scenes in this play, and a clear example of how, in Beckett's drama, cruelty and humor walk hand in hand, is when Poto offers Lucky's services to our two main characters, by saying that Lucky can do many things, like singing, dancing, or even thinking out loud. Then Lucky starts 5 minutes of what is one of the craziest monologues in the history of ever.
Simultaneously, what is more, for reasons unknown. In spite of the strides of physical culture, the practice of sports such as tennis, football, running, cycling, swimming, flying, floating, riding, gliding, conating, camogie, skating, tennis of all kinds, diving, flying, sports of all sorts, autumn, summer, winter tennis of all kinds, hockey of all sorts, penicillin and succedanea, in a word, I resume, and concurrently, simultaneously, for reasons unknown, to shrink and dwindle. In spite of the tennis, I resume flying, gliding.
Finally, besides all the dehumanization, humiliation, and deprivation, combined with the uncertainty of an endless waiting and a boredom that sometimes fuels indifference, we can also see cruelty when our characters suffer with their loneliness. By the end of Act 2, in one of the most touching scenes, Vladimir, as if understanding all this, asks himself, "I don't know what to think anymore. Was I sleeping while the others suffered? Am I sleeping now? I don't know about you, but to me, this has got to be one of the worst types of mental torture there is."
You dreamt it. It seemed to me he saw us.
Let's go. We can't... Oh, yes.
We have come to the end of our presentation. To conclude, we've picked up two of our favorite scenes to represent the humor and the tragedy in this brilliant, clever, tragic comedy in 2 acts. In the scene that I chose, there is irony, which is part of the absurdist humor in the play. where at first Didi and Gogo were feeling sorry for Pose's slave Lucky, but somehow at the end the tables have turned and Didi and Gogo end up feeling sorry for Pozo, the master.
Well, did you see? And now you turn him away. Such an old and faithful servant. Swine. After having sucked all the good out of him, you chuck him away like a banana skin. Really?
I can't bear it any longer. The way he goes on, you've no idea. It's terrible. I'm going mad. You must go. I can't bear it any longer.
He can't bear it any longer. He's going mad. It's terrible. How dare you? It's abominable. Such a good master, crucify him like that after so many years, really.
He used to be so kind, so helpful and entertaining, my good angel, and now he's killing me.
Does he want to replace him?
I don't know.
Ask him.
Gentlemen, I don't know what came over me. Forgive me. Forget all that I said. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you may be sure there wasn't a word of truth in it. Do I look like a man who can be made to suffer? Frankly.
Mr. Albert?
Off we go again.
It was easy for me to choose a scene that represents all that I talked about, because after reading this play a couple of times and watching performances of it, this is still one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen. It's near the end of the second and final act, when the boy comes again and Vladimir already knows exactly what he's going to say. That Godot can't come today, but that he'll come tomorrow. It reminds me of Clarice Lispector's famous short story, Clandestine Happiness, in which a girl promises to lend a book to another girl only to cruelly make up excuses so that she can tell that poor girl that she should come back the next day, creating a vicious circle of endless, torturous waiting.
Christ have mercy on us.
What am I to tell Mr. Godot, sir?
Tell him you saw me, and that you saw me. You're sure you saw me? You won't come and tell me tomorrow that you never saw me!
And that's a wrap on our journey through the cruelty and the absurdist humor in Waiting for Godot. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have. And, of course, if you still think it's a play where nothing happens twice, we can't help but finish with a touch of Irish irony in it. Thanks, Beckett.
You see, my memory is defective.
In the meantime, nothing happens.
You find that tedious?
Somewhat.
Adieu, sir.
I've been better entertained.